The stars were silent, or so it seemed. The year was 2089, and humanity had finally reached a level of technology that allowed them to look beyond the confines of their home planet. They were no longer confined to Earth. They had reached the stars, traveled to distant planets, and mapped the far corners of the galaxy. But what they never expected was that the galaxy had been watching them for much longer. It all started on a quiet Tuesday. The world was buzzing with news of the latest breakthroughs in space exploration. Humanity had just sent their first colony ship to a nearby star system. But on that same day, something unexpected happened. A strange signal, one that could not be explained by any known source, was detected. The signal was faint at first, barely noticeable, but it became impossible to ignore. Earth's brightest minds, scientists, engineers, and experts from every corner of the planet, gathered in secret. What was it? A message from another civilization? Or was it something more sinister? A team of highly skilled linguists worked day and night, trying to decode the strange signal. It wasn't like anything they had ever heard before. It was an alien language, one that was completely foreign to them. It was not just random noise, but a series of deliberate, rhythmic pulses, as though someone was trying to communicate. The world waited. The news spread fast, and soon every nation on Earth knew. Everyone was asking the same question. Who was sending this message? The answer, however, came sooner than anyone expected. As the signal intensified, Earth's best minds finally cracked the code. The message was clear, and yet it sent a chill down everyone's spine. We have been watching you, Earth. We are the Adzari, and we come to observe. Do not fear, we do not intend to destroy, but we will test you. A collective gasp echoed through the command centers across the globe. Test. What did they mean by that? Before they could comprehend the full meaning of the message, the sky above Earth began to change. In a blink of an eye, a massive object appeared in the atmosphere, hovering above the planet like a dark cloud. It was a ship, unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its metallic surface shimmered as it hovered above the ground, almost as if it were alive. The ship was enormous, dwarfing anything on Earth's surface. From every corner of the world, people stared in awe, some with fear, some with curiosity. Humanity had just made its first contact with an alien civilization, and it was nothing like what they had imagined. There were no signs of warships or weapons, just a massive ship that seemed to hum with power. But the silence was deafening. The world held its breath, waiting for the next move. As the hours passed, Earth's leaders debated. The Adzari, according to the message, had no intention of attacking. They had only come to observe. But that word, test, echoed in everyone's mind. What did that mean? What were they testing? On the ground, a team of military experts was quickly assembled. They needed to communicate with the Adzari. They couldn't afford to take any chances. A special team was put together to make first contact, a group of experts in communication, diplomacy, and security. And at the center of this team was Sarah Lawson, a young linguist who had spent her career studying ancient languages and forgotten dialects. It was her task to find a way to communicate with the Adzari, to understand what they wanted, and to ensure Earth's safety. As Sarah stood before the council, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. This was it, the first human contact with an alien race. What if she failed? What if they didn't understand her? What if the Adzari's intentions weren't as peaceful as they claimed? She stepped up to the communication panel, speaking to the team of scientists and engineers behind her. We've studied their message. We need to respond carefully. They are watching, waiting. If we show weakness, it could cost us everything. Her heart raced as she prepared to speak. The pressure was unbearable. Every eye in the world would be watching her. The fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. Could she decipher their language, or would she become the first failure in history? She took a deep breath and began to speak in the ancient dialect she had learned over the years. The language of their ancestors, the language of the stars. But as the first words left her mouth, something unexpected happened. The ship in the sky responded. A low hum vibrated through the ground, as if the ship itself was alive. Suddenly, the ship began to move. Slowly, at first, then faster. And as it moved, something incredible occurred. The ship began to change, shifting and contorting in ways that defied physics. Its smooth metallic surface warped and expanded as if it were a living organism. The team watched in awe. What was happening? Sarah continued speaking, her words echoing in the silence of the command room. But the ship wasn't just reacting to her words. It was listening. It was processing. And then something unexpected happened. The sky cracked open. Massive beams of light shot down from the ship, forming a glowing bridge from the ship to Earth. The Avzari had come to communicate. But what would they want from humanity? What tests would they put them through? The world held its breath, waiting to find out. As Sarah stepped back, she knew that the true test had just begun. As the beams of light descended from the hovering alien ship, the entire world seemed to stop. The skies were bathed in a strange, shimmering glow. Cities across the globe turned their attention skyward, watching the massive ship and the unnatural lights that seemed to be pulling Earth's fate into their grasp. The glowing bridge formed between the ship and Earth, hanging impossibly still in the air. It appeared to be made of some sort of energy, bending and pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. On the ground, military forces were on high alert. Communications teams scrambled to maintain order. No one knew what was coming next, but everyone knew it was big. Sarah Lawson, standing with the Council of Earth's leaders, couldn't shake the sense of urgency that gripped her chest. They had expected a meeting, an exchange of knowledge, or perhaps even an alliance. But this felt different. The test had begun, and they were the ones being tested. The ship's movements continued, its metallic surface glimmering against the backdrop of the sky. It wasn't just watching them. It was studying, analyzing. The alien race that had reached out to humanity wasn't looking for peace. They were gauging their worth, testing their strength. She glanced at the military officers in the room. They were preparing to send a team to the glowing bridge, but no one knew what awaited them there. No one knew how they would be tested. The world's top scientists, linguists, and diplomats had been put on standby. Every eye was on Sarah. Her knowledge of ancient languages might be the key to unraveling the mystery of this first contact. Sarah, a voice whispered behind her. She turned to see General Mitchell, a stern officer who had been appointed to oversee Earth's defense in case of hostile actions. His face was pale. "What do you think they want? What if this isn't a peaceful visit?" She shook her head, not sure how to answer. "I don't know, but we have to find out. We can't afford to make the wrong move." The world was on edge, and no one knew how to respond. No one was prepared for a situation like this, where diplomacy and science were at the forefront of humanity's survival. Earth was suddenly the center of an intergalactic game, one that could either make them allies with an ancient civilization or lead to their downfall. As the hours passed, the energy bridge continued to pulse, sending waves of energy into the surrounding air. Suddenly, a voice boomed across the planet, echoing from the sky. "Humanity," the voice said, deep and resonant, as though it were both alien and ancient. "You have been chosen. You will prove your worth. Step forward and begin your test. You may proceed." The air was thick with tension as the world's top leaders scrambled to make a decision. Should they send in a military unit first? Would that provoke a hostile response? Or should they send a team of diplomats and scientists, hoping that their understanding of language and culture would lead to peaceful negotiations? Sarah knew that this was more than just a test of strength. It was a test of humanity's wisdom and its ability to navigate a galaxy far beyond anything they had ever known. It was a test of their resolve, their unity, and their capacity to adapt. "Send in the linguists." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, calm and measured. She didn't hesitate. "If they've sent a message, they've sent it for a reason. We need to understand it fully before we make any decisions. General Mitchell nodded reluctantly. Agreed. But we need to make sure we have backup, just in case this goes sideways. The preparations began. Earth's best and brightest, Sarah included, were chosen to approach the bridge, carrying with them the knowledge that the fate of their species might rest on the success of this first interaction. As the team advanced toward the energy bridge, the rest of the world watched in silence. The air around them buzzed with energy, and the atmosphere seemed to crackle with the unknown. Every step felt heavier than the last. Finally, Sarah reached the glowing bridge, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what lay ahead, but she was ready to face it. The Atzari had chosen humanity, and she was about to find out why. The voice boomed again, resonating through the bridge. Humanity, step forward. You have entered the trial. The test is not of power, but of mind. You will face what your ancestors could not. The lights around them flashed, and the team was swept into a vortex of light, spiraling upwards toward the heart of the alien ship. The sensation of movement was disorienting, as though they were being pulled through time itself. When the spinning stopped, Sarah found herself standing in an unfamiliar chamber. It was vast, its walls made of the same shimmering metal that adorned the ship. Strange symbols decorated the walls, symbols that seemed to shimmer in and out of existence. The air was thick with a foreign energy, a presence that made her feel as though something, or someone, was watching them. Before Sarah could speak, a figure appeared in the center of the room. The alien was tall, its skin translucent, with an aura of power that made the very air seem to hum. It spoke in a language that was familiar to Sarah, though the words were distorted, ancient. "Welcome, human," the alien said, its voice reverberating in her mind. "The test has begun. Let us see if your kind is worthy of the galaxy's knowledge, or if you will fall, as those before you did." As the alien spoke, Sarah's heart raced. This was not the peaceful meeting they had hoped for. This was a challenge, one that would require everything humanity had to survive. The test had truly begun, and no one knew what the consequences would be if they failed. The moment the alien's voice reverberated through Sarah's mind, she felt the weight of the galaxy's expectations pressing down on her. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a challenge, an ancient test designed to measure the worth of humanity. The alien stood tall before her, its translucent skin glowing faintly, its eyes gleaming with an unreadable expression. "Human." The alien spoke again, its voice echoing in her mind. "You are here because your species has been chosen to prove its worth. This trial will test the limits of your intellect, your adaptability, and your understanding of the universe. Fail, and your kind will be forgotten, cast into the annals of history like so many before you. Succeed, and you will gain knowledge beyond your wildest dreams." Sarah's heart raced. She exchanged a glance with the others in her team, their faces reflecting the same mix of awe and trepidation. They had no choice now but to face the trial head-on, to prove that humanity wasn't just a myth, as the alien race might have believed. They were not just pawns in a game. They were sentient beings with the potential to rise to great heights or fall into darkness. "Prepare yourself," the alien continued. "You will face a series of challenges, tests of logic, strategy, and decision-making. You must choose wisely, for each wrong answer will lead to a consequence. Time is not on your side." The alien's form shimmered and disappeared, leaving the team in a vast chamber filled with swirling lights and shifting walls. They were no longer standing in the same room they had entered. The environment had changed. The walls were now covered with strange symbols, their meanings completely alien to Sarah. The floor beneath them was no longer solid but seemed to pulse, shifting with every step they took. "Stay alert," Sarah whispered to her team. "We don't know what's coming, but we have to be ready for anything." A soft hum filled the air, and a screen materialized in front of them, glowing with a soft blue light. On the screen appeared a complex puzzle, an intricate web of interconnected lines and shapes. It was unlike anything they had seen before. The symbols didn't match any known language, nor did they follow any recognizable logic. "It's a code," one of the scientists murmured, his voice trembling with both excitement and fear. "But it's unlike anything we've encountered. This is far beyond our current understanding." Sarah stepped forward, her mind racing. She could feel the weight of their task pressing on her. This was the first test, the one that would set the tone for everything to come. If they failed, if they couldn't crack the code, they would be one step closer to failure. Humanity would lose any chance at proving their worth. As she examined the screen, something within her mind clicked. The symbols, while unfamiliar, seemed to follow patterns. It wasn't just a random jumble of shapes. It was a puzzle that required more than just brute force to solve. It required insight, creativity, and most importantly, an understanding of the alien's way of thinking. Suddenly, the alien's voice echoed through the chamber again. "You have 10 minutes. If you fail, you will face the consequences." The countdown began, and Sarah's pulse quickened. She could hear her team members whispering to one another, trying to decipher the code in a panic. But Sarah knew that panic would do them no good. She had to remain calm. She took a deep breath and focused. The symbols on the screen began to make sense, slowly revealing their true nature. Each symbol was a representation of something larger, a concept, an idea, a philosophy. It was a form of abstract thinking, one that required a deep understanding of the universe itself. The puzzle wasn't just about logic. It was about insight into the fundamental workings of reality. Sarah's fingers hovered over the symbols, tracing them lightly with her eyes. Slowly, methodically, she began to rearrange the pieces in her mind, unlocking the hidden meaning behind each one. She could feel the pressure mounting as the clock ticked down. The tension in the air was thick, and every passing second felt like an eternity. Her fingers moved, pressing a sequence of symbols on the screen, one after the other. The moment she completed the sequence, the screen flashed bright white, blinding everyone in the room. For a moment, they were suspended in a dazzling light, the puzzle gone, replaced by a new image. The image was of a star system, vast and ancient, with planets orbiting a dying sun. And at the center of it all, a dark figure stood, watching. It was the alien they had encountered, but now it was different. It wasn't just an alien. It was a symbol, a warning. "The test is not just about logic," the voice boomed. "It is about your understanding of the universe and your place within it. You have passed the first challenge. But remember this: to understand the puzzle is one thing. To live by its solution is another." The walls of the chamber shifted again, the symbols now gone, replaced by a vast expanse of stars. The alien had given them a glimpse of something deeper, a lesson about the universe's complexity and the nature of power. Sarah turned to her team, her face tense but determined. They had completed the first test. But what would the next challenge bring? What new trials would they face, and would humanity be able to rise to meet them? One thing was certain: the galaxy was watching. The alien races that had once laughed at humanity were now seeing something they hadn't expected. Humanity had proven itself not through sheer power or weapons, but through its intellect, its creativity, and its resilience. The first test was over, but the trial had just begun. As Sarah and her team stood in the vast, starry chamber, the weight of the aliens' words hung over them like a storm cloud. They had passed the first test, but it was clear now that there were far more layers to uncover. What did the alien mean by living by the solution? What consequences awaited them if they failed? The silence in the room was palpable as the team gathered their thoughts. Sarah glanced at the newly revealed star system on the screen. The image of the dark figure from the previous test lingered in her mind. What was its purpose? Was it a warning? Or something far more significant? "We need to stay focused," Sarah said, her voice steady, but tinged with urgency. "This is only the beginning. We've unlocked part of the puzzle, but now we have to understand what it means. The knowledge is out there, and it's our job to uncover it." Her words grounded the team, but doubt still lingered in the air. The challenge was only getting more difficult, and with each test, The stakes rose. As if on cue, the chamber pulsed again, and a new image appeared on the screen. This time, it wasn't a puzzle or a symbol. It was an ancient book, an artifact. It looked strangely familiar, almost like something from Earth's own history. The pages seemed to ripple, as though the book itself were alive, waiting to share its secrets. "This is what we've been searching for," Sarah whispered, her eyes wide. "Knowledge, ancient knowledge." The team leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the book. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, etched with strange symbols and cryptic words. Some of the writing resembled Earth's ancient languages, but there were no matches. They couldn't decipher it. The voice of the alien echoed once more through the chamber, breaking the silence. "Knowledge is power," it said, "but it is also a trap. Many civilizations have sought to unlock the secrets of the universe. They believed they were ready, but they weren't. This book contains the key to ultimate understanding, but be warned. If you open it without the proper wisdom, the consequences will be dire." Sarah's heart raced. She looked at the team, each of them staring at the book with a mixture of awe and fear. This was it, the final test, the moment that could change everything. If they unlocked the secrets of the book, they could gain access to a power far beyond their comprehension. But if they failed, they could unravel the very fabric of the universe itself. "Do we open it?" Sarah asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and caution. "Or do we walk away?" For a moment, no one spoke. The decision seemed almost impossible. There were too many unknowns, but the voice of the alien reminded them of the risks. "The choice is yours, human." The alien's voice boomed again. "Open the book and gain the power of the ancients, or walk away and lose everything." Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. The team had already come this far. They had faced the impossible and overcome it. The tests had pushed them to their limits, but they had endured. And now, this was the ultimate test. With a sense of finality, Sarah stepped forward. The book before her seemed to glow with an ethereal light, as though inviting her to open its pages. "If we open it, we do so together," Sarah said, her voice resolute. "Whatever happens, we face it as one." One by one, her team members stepped forward, joining her at the book. Together, they reached for the ancient artifact. The moment their fingers touched the book, a jolt of energy shot through the room. The stars outside seemed to swirl faster, as if time itself had sped up. The air thickened with tension as the book's pages began to turn on their own, revealing strange symbols, equations, and celestial maps. For a brief moment, they saw the stars like they had never seen before. They were connected, swirling in perfect harmony, each one playing a role in the vast cosmic dance. The knowledge flowed through them like a river, unlocking secrets of the universe they never thought possible. The walls of the chamber faded, replaced by a breathtaking view of distant galaxies, each one more magnificent than the last. But then, just as quickly, the vision vanished. The team stood frozen, their minds buzzing with the overwhelming flood of knowledge they had just witnessed. They had touched something beyond their understanding. But what had it cost them? The alien's voice reverberated once again, this time colder, more foreboding. "You have opened the door," it said, "but the knowledge you sought has consequences. You have glimpsed the power of the ancients, but now you must live with its weight. Remember, wisdom without restraint leads to destruction." The room fell silent as the team tried to process what had just happened. The knowledge was too vast, too overwhelming to comprehend all at once. But they knew one thing for certain: their journey was far from over. The alien's warning hung in the air as they took a collective breath. They had unlocked a power greater than anything humanity had ever known, but now they had to decide how to use it. Could they wield this knowledge responsibly, or would it become their undoing? The real test, Sarah realized, had just begun. As the glowing book's final page turned, the room's atmosphere seemed to shift, like a heavy veil had descended over them. Sarah could feel the pulse of energy reverberating in her bones, The knowledge that had just flooded their minds was dizzying, and for a fleeting moment, it felt as though the universe itself was watching them, holding its breath. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself, but the alien's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. "You have seen what others could only dream of," the voice echoed. "But this power is not without its cost. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. It will give you the ability to shake the stars, but it will also test your very humanity. Are you prepared for the burden you have just accepted?" Sarah opened her eyes, and her heart pounded in her chest. Her team was equally affected. Some looked as if they had seen something beyond the stars, something terrifying. Others were overwhelmed by the weight of the power they now held. For a moment, it seemed as though no one could speak. "What's happening to us?" whispered Dr. Coleman, his voice trembling. His hand was on his chest, and his face was pale. "It's the knowledge," Sarah said, her voice steady, though she felt far from steady herself. "It's altering us. The alien warned us. Wisdom without restraint leads to destruction." Before they could process the words further, the room began to shift. The walls seemed to stretch and warp. The once perfect holographic maps of distant galaxies flickered like a broken mirror, the stars shifting in a disorienting dance. They were no longer in the room with the alien's voice. It was as though they were being transported to another dimension altogether, or maybe they had unlocked a new realm of existence. Sarah's head spun. She was no longer sure if they were still in their own reality. Her fingers tingled with the residual energy of the knowledge they had absorbed. With every passing second, the information in her mind grew more complex, like thousands of interwoven threads trying to form a pattern she couldn't fully grasp. Then, as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The room fell silent again. And before them, standing at the far end of the chamber, a figure materialized. It wasn't the alien they had been speaking to. This being was different. Its form was cloaked in a shimmering, translucent armor. Its eyes were like black holes, absorbing the very light around them. It radiated an energy that felt ancient, yet impossibly alive. The being spoke with an intensity that sent a chill down their spines. "You have awakened what was never meant to be awakened," the being intoned. Its voice was deeper, more resonant than the alien's, as if it came from the very core of the universe itself. "The knowledge you have gained, it is not a gift, but a curse. You are now bound to the very forces that shaped this galaxy. The consequences of your actions will echo across time and space." Sarah's throat went dry as she tried to speak, but no words came. The weight of the being's words crushed down on her, and she understood, deep in her bones, that they had made a terrible mistake. What do we do now?" Dr. Coleman asked, his voice barely a whisper. The being's gaze turned toward him, its eyes swirling with cosmic energy. "There is no undoing what you have done. You have opened the door to forces beyond your understanding. Now you must live with the consequences of that choice. There is no escape from the path you have chosen." Sarah felt her chest tighten. There was no going back. They had made their decision, but what awaited them was far more than they had ever imagined. They had unlocked the power to change the fate of the universe, but they hadn't realized the price of that power. The figure continued. "To wield the power of the ancients, you must first conquer yourselves. Only then can you begin to comprehend the true scale of what lies ahead. But be warned, the path is fraught with peril. If you fail, you will bring destruction not only to yourselves, but to the entire galaxy." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating them with the weight of their gravity. The team exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do next. "We must leave," Sarah said quietly, her voice trembling with resolve. "We can't stay here. We need to figure out how to control this knowledge before it consumes us." The team nodded in agreement, but even as they turned to leave, Sarah knew deep in her heart that they were not truly leaving. They were entering a new reality, one where their every move would be watched, where the forces of the universe were now aligned against them. As they exited the chamber, The alien's voice reverberated through the corridors, following them like a shadow. "Remember," it said, its tone cold and foreboding. "Power is a prison, and once you've tasted it, there is no escape." The team stumbled out of the chamber, their minds still reeling from the encounter. Each step felt like they were walking on unstable ground, as if the very fabric of reality had shifted around them. Sarah could feel the power pulsing through her veins, and the weight of the universe seemed to rest on her shoulders. It was a burden she had never anticipated when they first ventured into this alien outpost. They had unlocked something ancient, something far beyond their understanding, and now they were bound to it. As the team gathered in the dimly lit hallway, their faces were pale and etched with fear. The knowledge they had gained was too much to bear, and each of them struggled with its weight in their own way. I can feel it," Dr. Coleman muttered, running a shaky hand through his hair. "The energy inside my head. It's like 1,000 voices screaming at once. I can't focus. I can't think." Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder, trying to steady him. She, too, could feel the pressure building in her mind, the overwhelming flood of information threatening to consume her. "We need to stay calm," she said, her voice low but firm. "We need to find a way to control it." But how could they? The alien being had made it clear. This knowledge was a double-edged sword, and there was no escaping its consequences. The more they tried to understand it, the more it seemed to slip through their fingers, like sand in the wind. And yet, deep down, Sarah knew that they couldn't turn back now. They had made their choice, and now they had to face the consequences, no matter how terrifying they might be. They made their way through the dark corridors of the alien facility, each step echoing in the silence. The once vibrant and welcoming halls now felt cold and alien, a reflection of the change that had taken place within them. The knowledge they carried was like a virus, spreading through their minds, changing the way they saw the world and themselves. As they reached the central control room, Sarah hesitated. The door in front of her shimmered, reacting to their presence, but she knew that beyond that door lay the key to understanding what had truly happened. It was where the alien had taken them, the source of all the knowledge they had just absorbed. The room was silent as they stepped inside. The air was thick with the remnants of the power they had unlocked, and Sarah could almost hear the hum of the energy vibrating through the walls. The control panels, once a mystery to them, now seemed oddly familiar, as if their minds had been programmed to understand them. But even with this newfound knowledge, there was still an unsettling feeling that they were playing with something far too dangerous. "We need to access the central archives," Sarah said, her voice steady but unsure. "We need to know what this power truly is, what it's capable of." The team nodded in unison, their faces grim. They had to know what they were dealing with. But as they worked together to activate the terminal, a warning flashed across the screen, written in a language none of them recognized. Sarah leaned closer, her heart pounding. The symbol seemed to swirl, as if the very words themselves were alive. Then the message shifted, translating into something they could understand. But the words were chilling. "You have opened the door. Now the storm will come. There is no turning back." The words seemed to echo in Sarah's mind as they were spoken aloud by the terminal's mechanical voice. The warning was clear. The knowledge they had unlocked was not just a gift, but a curse. There was no way to control it, no way to hide from it. Whatever lay beyond the door, whatever forces had been unleashed, were coming for them. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the room was bathed in an eerie red light. The once peaceful facility had transformed into something far darker, and the very walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. "Get ready," Sarah said, her voice shaking with determination. "Whatever's coming, we face it together." But as she spoke, she knew that they were no longer in control. They had unleashed something ancient, something far more powerful than they had ever imagined. And now they had to face the storm that was coming for them. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward, leading her team into the unknown. The storm had arrived. The air crackled with energy as the ground beneath them continued to tremble. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing through the chamber as she watched the lights flicker and the walls pulsate with a dark, unseen force. It felt like the very fabric of the building was alive. Alive with fear and intent. The warning they had read flashed in her mind. There is no turning back. She turned to her team, their faces grim but determined. They were all in this together, and they had no choice now but to face whatever was coming. "What do we do now?" Dr. Coleman asked, his voice tight with fear. His hand trembled as he adjusted his glasses, trying to focus on the swirling data on the control panel. "We've unlocked something that we can't undo." "What if it's too late?" Sarah's eyes narrowed. "It's too late for regrets. We have to find a way to stop it, or we risk losing everything." She didn't know exactly what they had unleashed, but one thing was certain: it was far more powerful than anything they had ever imagined. The eerie red lights grew brighter, casting long shadows across the room. The temperature seemed to drop, and an unnatural chill filled the air. Sarah could feel her breath becoming shallow, as if the air itself was being squeezed out of her lungs. A low, growling hum emanated from somewhere deep within the facility, vibrating through the walls and rattling the floor beneath them. "I think it's alive," Lieutenant Harris whispered, his voice barely audible. He had been silent until now, eyes wide with fear. "This place, it's not just a building. It's a weapon." The realization hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. The facility wasn't just a research outpost. It was something far more dangerous. She had no idea what kind of weapon they were dealing with, but it was clear that whatever it wasn't meant to be tampered with. She moved quickly, scanning the room for anything that could help. A series of glowing red symbols on the walls caught her eye. They seemed to pulse in rhythm with the vibrations, almost like a warning beacon. She had seen similar markings in the ancient texts they had translated earlier. The message had been clear: there is no turning back. With a sudden surge of urgency, she rushed to the terminal and began furiously typing. Her fingers flew over the keys, inputting commands she didn't entirely understand, but hoping they would be enough to stop the process. The screen flickered before her, displaying a series of cryptic lines of code that seemed to grow more and more complex with each passing second. Come on," she muttered, her heart racing. She had to do something. Anything. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the hum stopped. The lights flickered, then went out entirely, plunging the room into darkness. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. The air was thick with anticipation, and Sarah could feel her pulse thumping in her ears. "Did we do it?" Harris asked, his voice tight with disbelief. The screen in front of her flickered back to life, the words on it rearranging themselves into a new message. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she read the new text aloud. "The storm has begun. There is no escape." Before she could react, the ground shook violently, and a loud, deafening roar echoed through the entire facility. The walls groaned, and the very foundations of the structure seemed to crack under the weight of the energy they had unleashed. And then, the storm came. From the depths of the facility, something began to emerge, a massive, swirling vortex of energy, darker than the blackest night, consuming everything in its path. The temperature plummeted, and Sarah could feel the hairs on her arms stand on end. The air grew thick with static, and the very walls seemed to bend and warp as the vortex drew closer. "We need to leave," Dr. Coleman shouted, panic in his voice. But Sarah couldn't move. She was frozen in place, her eyes locked on the swirling mass of darkness that was rapidly approaching them. "Get to the exit," Sarah ordered, shaking herself from her trance. They couldn't stay here. They had to get out, or they'd be consumed by the storm. The team scrambled toward the exit, but the vortex moved faster than they had anticipated. The door slammed shut before they could reach it, locking them inside. A voice, not human, echoed through the room. a deep guttural growl that seemed to come from every direction at once. "You have awakened me. Now you will pay the price." Sarah's stomach dropped. This wasn't just some alien weapon. It was something alive, something ancient that had been lying dormant, waiting for them to awaken it. And now that it had been released, there was no stopping it. The walls seemed to close in on them, the air thickening with the pressure of the storm that was now engulfing the entire facility. The last thing Sarah saw before the darkness swallowed them whole was the flickering light of the terminal, displaying one final message: there is no escape.